So hello, yes, my name is Peter Crame. I'm the product director at Wendy Wu Tours, and I'd like to welcome you to our introduction to Central Asia and the Middle East. First, we're going to start with Central Asia. It's a region that's relatively new to us at Wendy Wu Tours, but very, very close to my heart. I've traveled to Central Asia many times, on and off since 1990. So I know the area really well, and I've seen it emerge from its recent history as part of the Soviet Empire to what it is today, one of the most fascinating and most culturally diverse parts of the world. So over the next 15 minutes or so, I'd like to introduce you to two of our most popular tours in the region. First, we're going to look at this tour, the Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. This tour, as you see, is a 23-day tour that encompasses the three countries of the Caucasus region. Thank you. This map is just to illustrate the Caucasus region and show you where the three countries sit in relation to each other. Hemmed in, as you can see, by the Black Sea in the west and the Caspian Sea in the east, and the Greater Caucasus Mountains to the north. So the geography of this region, right at the bridgehead between Europe and Asia, explains the amazing diversity of language, religion, culture, architecture, and arts across a relatively small piece of land. It really is a cultural melting pot. Our tour starts in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, if you want to move on, Fiona. Our tour starts in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan, a fascinating city where the modern and ancient sit right on top of each other. It's an oil-rich city, but very conscious of its history. Fiona? It's an oil-rich city, but very conscious of its history. These flame towers represent the natural gas that burns permanently from the ground in this area. But from Baku, we head quickly to the west, into the mountains, and find older, more traditional architecture. Also, a strange fusion of Christian churches and Islamic buildings such as this. Moving on, we come to the town of Sheki, which is right up in the foothills of the Caucasus Mountains, and explore the colourful bazaars in Sheki, as well as this building, the Sheki Palace, whose interior is just as ornately decorated as the exterior. Crossing the border into Georgia, we spend time in the low-lying wine region. Georgian wine, if you've not tried it, is incredibly good, and we do include a wine tasting as part of this tour. We stay at this town, Sinyagi, which, as you can see, is dramatically located on a hillside overlooking the Caucasus. Moving on, we come to Tbilisi, Georgia's very colourful capital city. This is an amazing capital, full of sights, but also lovely little back streets and cafes, shops and restaurants to explore on foot. We also have plenty of time to enjoy Georgian food and wine, both of which are excellent. The food is a really interesting fusion between East and West, with Middle Eastern, Turkish and European influences. For many people in Georgia, the food is very much a highlight of their time there. From Tbilisi, we head north into the Caucasus Mountains and visit this amazing church, the Gegeti Holy Trinity Church, with its wonderful views across the high peaks of the Caucasus, some of which are more than 5,000 meters high. Our journey continues westwards through the Caucasus Mountains to one of my favorite regions of all, Svaneti. If you'd like to move the slides on, Fiona. Yes, this is the region of Svaneti. And as you can see, the area is tucked away in the foothills of the Caucasus with vast open views and beautiful unspoilt villages and grazing pastures. Many of the characteristic stone buildings in all these villages are more than 1,000 years old, built to protect the villagers from bandits. And from Svaneti, we head south to Kutaisi and visit Gelati Monastery. So wherever you go in Georgia, you see monasteries and churches. This is one of the very earliest of all the Christian countries in Europe. And this monastery here, Gelati, was built in 1100. As you can see, the location is lovely. And the church itself is full of wonderful frescoes and mosaics. Later, we include this cave monastery at Vardzia, which stretches 500 meters along the cliffside overlooking the river valley, with up to 19 levels connected by tunnels and stairways with painted churches and chapels dating back to the 11th century. And from here, we cross the border into Armenia, the third and final country on this tour, and we visit the Hagatzin monastery in its beautiful setting, surrounded by woodland trees. And from Hagatzin, we head south to Lake Sevan and visit this church, Sevanank Church. This lake here, Lake Sevan, is spectacular, as you see, and it's famous for its ever-changing shades of blue. Later, we visit Tatev Monastery, which is one of the earliest and most important of all the monasteries in Armenia, built on a basalt plateau overlooking the mountains around it. This early Armenian architecture is said to have influenced church architecture throughout the whole of Western Europe, with churches traditionally built on the plan of a cross. But moving on, we come to the Roman temple complex at Garni, near Yerevan. Just a reminder that the Roman Empire stretched this far eastwards from Rome at its heart, of course. And then finally on this tour, we visit Zvartnots, a 7th century temple complex on the outskirts of Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, with the wonderful Mount Aragats, as you can see in the background. So our tour ends in Yerevan, the Armenian capital. So next we want to take you to our Road to Samarkand tour, which is in a slightly different part of Central Asia. This tour encompasses two countries, Kyrgyzstan and Uzbekistan. Just to place the region on a map, what you can see over on the left side of the map there is Azerbaijan and the Caucasus region. And we visit the two countries, as I said, of Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan on this tour. Moving on. The tour begins with 9 days in Kyrgyzstan. Now, Kyrgyzstan, of all the countries in Central Asia, has to be scenically the most dramatic and the most beautiful. So our time here is all about exploring the national parks, the lakes, the mountains, and the nomadic and pastoral lifestyles of the people who live in this beautiful, beautiful country. First, we visit the Ala-Acha National Park. We go to Lake Isikul, a really dramatic lake set amongst the high Almaty mountains. And from Lake Isikul, where we do a little boat trip, we travel up into the mountains to see an eagle hunting demonstration, and visit also the Sunday market at Karakol, a lovely traditional unspoilt market, a very authentic place to visit and witness how local people have traded animals and goods for centuries. Moving on, we come to this place, one of my favorite places in the whole of Central Asia. This is the 15th century caravanserai of Tash Rabat, where Silk Road merchants will have stopped and rested for hundreds of years. It's really hard when you visit this place not to imagine yourself back in the time of the Silk Road camel caravans, traveling through this very stark stepland scenery. Moving on, we come to Chong Kemin National Park. Again, another beautiful park in the foothills of the mountains. And from there, our time in Kyrgyzstan comes to an end, and we cross the border into Uzbekistan. The capital of Uzbekistan is Tashkent, and we spend a little time in Tashkent before traveling on to the most famous of all the Silk Road cities, Samarkand. Right at the heart of Samarkand, we visit the Registan Square here, possibly the most architecturally perfect square in the world. This is, we spend 4 full days in Samarkand, which is plenty of time to take in all the sites and to visit the nearby sites of Shahrisabz. Not many other operators will give you that much time to enjoy the beautiful culture and the beautiful architecture of the city. Everywhere you go in the old town of Samarkand, you encounter some of the finest Islamic architecture anywhere in the world. So this place, Gur-e-Amir, for example, which means Tomb of the King, is a 15th century mausoleum to Tamerlane the Great. Every single surface inside the mosque and outside is beautifully decorated with the traditional blue tiles. Moving on, we come to Bukhara, which is also located on the Silk Road and a centre not just for trade, but also for scholarship, culture, and the arts. The whole of the city centre has been designated a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. In fact, moving on, there are 140 historical sites in the Old Town, and we visit the most significant of these, including this beautiful mosque, the Kalyan Mosque. But we also spend time witnessing local life, sipping tea at traditional tea houses, visiting ceramic workshops, etc. Finally, we move on to this place, Ichankala in Khiva, which is the third and probably the most perfectly preserved of all the Silk Road cities. The whole city is surrounded by a 10-meter high mud brick wall and is designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And of all the places you'll visit in Central Asia, it's probably the most perfect example of a fortified Silk Road city, with most of its monuments still intact, including this place, the Kalta Minor. This beautiful unfinished minaret was planned to be high enough to be able to see Bukhara nearly 500 kilometers away from the top. And finally, at the end of this tour, a flight to Tashkent brings you back to the end of the tour. So before moving on to the Middle East, I just wanted to introduce you to two new tours in the Central Asia region. The first is our Ultimate Uzbekistan tour, which, as you see, is a 12-day tour encompassing just Uzbekistan. It's a more in-depth visit to Uzbekistan, focusing on the three cities I've just discussed, Samarkand, Bukhara, and Khiva, but also visiting Nukus, which is just on the border between Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan in the north, and is the start point for this journey through Uzbekistan. Also, we have a new tour in the Caucasus region called Gems of Georgia. Now, this is a lovely 11-day itinerary which focuses just on Georgia. If you want to visit Armenia and Azerbaijan on the same visit, the other tour we discussed is the best option. But if you just want to visit Georgia on an 11-day fully inclusive tour for £2,500, this is the one. It encompasses all the highlights of the country, as you can see. Now, at this point, I'm going to hand you across to Fiona to take you to the Middle East region and take you through her tours of her slides of the Middle East.
Hello? Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Sorry, I just want to move the slide on. I'm sorry, people. I'm just having a slight delay here. Trying to fix technology, I'm afraid. My screen doesn't seem to want to be moving over. Apologies. I've lost control of the screen. Are you able to see my screen, Peter?
Yeah, I can see Gems of Georgia, but...
Okay, just bear with me 1 sec here. I've got it back. Oh, I have to... Sorry. I've lost control of the presentation. Oh, there we go. Apologies.
Well done. Yes, we've got the Middle East screen now, Fiona.
Okay, perfect. Apologies for that. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fiona Lunadeli. I'm the product manager for Wendy Wu Tours Middle East department. Wendy Wu Tours has developed 4 comprehensive Middle East itineraries for our customers that incorporate the best sightseeing, cultural interactions, and culinary experiences of each country. On the map that you're currently looking at, just to indicate exactly where the 4 countries are and where they are located and what they are. So we're introducing Egypt, Jordan, Israel, and Oman. They are transcontinental. It is a transcontinental region. in Northeast Africa as well as Southwest Asia, and has great historical importance from the ancient times. In actual fact, several religions originated from this region, being Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And it boasts a diverse landscape of mountains, plateaus, coastlines, and deserts, with cities and bazaars to charm you, as well as hospitality that you've never experienced before. Apologies. Right, moving on. Okay, so our very first tour I'm going to introduce you to is, our Dreams of Egypt tour. It's an 11-day tour. It includes 4 nights in Cairo, 1 night Alexandria, 1 night on a first-class sleeper train from Cairo to Luxor, as well as the unforgettable 4-night cruise along the Nile from Luxor to Aswan. Our tour starts in Cairo with 2 full days to explore the city, taking in all its renowned sites. You'll visit the pyramids and the Sphinx of Giza, both of which are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Giza is located approximately 45 minutes outside of Cairo. Here you'll get to explore probably about 2 hours before heading back to Cairo, where you get to visit the Egyptian Museum. The Egyptian Museum is home to many artifacts, mummies, and much more. By now you've probably all heard that there is a brand new museum that's being built. It's called the Grand Egyptian Museum. It's scheduled to open in 2021. However, we do not yet have dates. As soon as this museum opens, this would then replace our excursion to the old Egyptian Museum, as all the artifacts are currently being moved across. In the afternoon of this day, you'll end the day by exploring the Khan al-Khalili Bazaar and make sure that you're all ready to bargain for your purchases. Moving along for day 2, we are then visiting the Coptic area of Cairo. So we'll get to visit the Coptic Quarter, the Coptic Museum, and Saqqara. For those of you who don't know, Saqqara is actually best known for being the first step pyramid in Egypt, and is one of the oldest, or is the oldest, of the 97 pyramids you'd find. That evening, we'll return to Cairo. We'll have dinner at the top of the Cairo Tower, which is a revolving restaurant. Early the next morning, we're leaving Cairo and we're heading north to Alexandria via the desert road. It takes approximately 3 hours. And once in Alexandria, we'll visit the Roman amphitheater, the catacombs, as well as Kate Bay Citadel, which is on your screens at the moment. We are overnighting in Alexandria and then heading back south to Cairo the next day. En route to Cairo, we'll be stopping at Al Alamein, which is a site of decisive Allied force victory in the World War II. Here we'll get to see the military museums as well as the cemetery. You will have lunch en route, and then we'll be heading straight actually to the station to board your first class sleeper train from Cairo to Luxor. It will take you overnight, arriving in Luxor the next morning. Once in Luxor, we'll make our way to the port where you embark on the MS Tulip. On your screen right now, gives you an idea of what the ship looks like. So just to give you an idea, on board, there is certain entertainment you'll experience, but most of the time you'll be off sightseeing, obviously, as Egypt has so much to offer you as we sail down the Nile. But there'll be local shows, there'll be belly dancers, as well as a Galabaya dress-up party for those of you on the final evening of the cruise. Starting with the sightseeing that you'll be experiencing once in Luxor. Right, we'll start off with visiting Egypt's East Bank. And we're starting with the Temple of Karnak as well as the Temple of Luxor. Both are impressive, complex buildings dedicated to the Egyptian pharaohs. Next, we'll move on to the West Bank, where some of Egypt's most stunning landscapes are what you'll be seeing. You'll visit the 18-meter high Colossi Memnon statues, the Temple of Queen Hatshepsut, as well as the Valley of the Kings. The Valley of the Kings is where King Tut's tomb is found, and they do allow you on certain times of the year to actually go inside. We then go back to board your cruise ship, and you'll sail further south to Esna. The next morning, you'll sleep overnight on board your boat, and the next morning we set sail for Edfu, where we reach Edfu. We'll be seeing the temple of Edfu as well as Komombo temple. We'll then set sail for Aswan. In Aswan, it's off to explore the High Dam, which is the world's largest embankment dam. You'll also get to see the unfinished obelisk, which is 42 meters in length, and it's unfinished. Well, myth has it that it's unfinished due to the various cracks in it, so they were unable to actually get it to stand up. We'll then move on to the Temple of Philae, and we'll end the day with a nice felucca ride around the area of Aswan, where you get to view Elephantine Island. After disembarking, you have the morning at leisure to explore Aswan. You can go into the local markets, which you're seeing on the screen. Remember again that it's all about the bargaining and how you go about it to buy those souvenirs that you want to take home. You'll fly back to Cairo late that afternoon and enjoy a dinner before setting off to Giza, once again, to have your last look at the pyramids and to experience the sound and light show there. The next day, it's time to depart as we head home or onwards to the next destination. Next tour I'd like to introduce you to is Jordan. So it's our journey through Jordan. It's an 8-day tour, and it starts off in Amman, the capital city. Many people have passed through Jordan, leaving behind monuments, amphitheaters, as well as castles. Our tour covers from the sandstone escarpments of Petra to the red dunes of Wadi Rum, as well as to the white salt shorelines of the Dead Sea. We'll start with the city tour in Amman, and then we'll head off north to Jerash. Jerash is known for its Roman ruins. You'll experience a chariot race, which is a favored Roman pastime, and then travel on to Ajlun, where you'll get to see the castle that overlooks the Jordan Valley. Again, setting off from Amman, we'll head to see some of the desert castles, which depict the early Islamic art and architecture. Enjoy a workshop with a local expert, and here you get to make your own nai, which is the local instrument that they make. It's a wind instrument, almost looking like a flute. We'll travel on to Mount Nebo to visit the site of Moses' tomb, and then to Madaba to visit the mosaic map of the Holy Land, before we arrive in Petra, the lost city, surrounded by imposing mountains and narrow passageways. The most popular monument here is the treasury, but there are many more, and you'll have lots of hours to explore. You'll go back to the hotel for lunch and an afternoon rest before returning to Petra that night to see it under candlelit, where it will be lit up by over 1,500 candles. Following day, we're traveling south for a one-night experience in the desert. We'll reach the Bedouin camp by 4x4s after going over many, many dunes through the valleys and the canyons. Dinner, of course, tonight will be under the stars. The next day, we're continuing to the Dead Sea, where you have the day at leisure to either float in this body of salt water or to explore your surroundings. That brings us then back to Amman to end this 8-day tour. Our next country we'll be visiting is Israel. Our ancient Israel tour is 8 days, fully inclusive, and again starts in Tel Aviv. Israel takes you through Israel as well as Palestinian territories. It's considered the Holy Land by the Christians, Jews, Muslims, and you'll explore ancient synagogues, New Testament sites, hills and valleys, and enjoy a Shabbat dinner prepared by a rabbi. The cities we'll be visiting are Tel Aviv, Jaffa, Tiberias, the Dead Sea, Bethlehem, and of course Jerusalem. First stop on this tour is Jaffa, which is known as the world's oldest active harbour. We then move on to Caesarea and to visit some Druze villages to interact with the locals. Touring here will end in Tiberias on the shores of the famous Sea of Galilee. The next morning, you're off to a kibbutz to learn all about their development. You'll visit Tebaga, the site of the miracle of loaves and fishes, and then Capernaum, as well as the Mount of Beatitudes, before returning back to Tiberias for the night. Today, you're entering Palestinian territory, and we're en route to Jericho, where you'll take a cable car up Mount of Temptations, and then in the afternoon, we'll be heading on to the Dead Sea. The Mount of Temptations is said to be the place where Jesus was tempted by evil. The second cable car ride for you will take you up to the top of Masada Fortress, located high above the Dead Sea, and is a symbol of the ancient kingdom of Israel. We'll then move on to Qumran, to where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, before arriving in Bethlehem for the night, where you'll be entertained by a local Palestinian dance show. Busy day ahead. As you start off with a visit to the Church of Nativity, you'll then drive to Mount Zion, Mount of Olives, the Church of Ascension, and the Garden of Gethsemane, arriving then in Western Jerusalem. The next day, you'll take a tour of Temple Mount, the famous Dome of the Rock, the Western Wall, otherwise known as the Wailing Wall, which is up on the screen, as well as walking around and experiencing the Stations of the Cross to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, famous as the site where Jesus was crucified. You'll end the day with a Shabbat dinner prepared by a rabbi before your tour ends, unfortunately, the next day, back in Tel Aviv. Our fourth and final country takes us to Oman. We have here the deserts and dunes of Oman, 8-day tour starting in Muscat. Deserts and dunes of Oman, it's a country of diverse landscapes that range from rugged mountain ranges, vast deserts, to dazzling souks and divine cuisine. On this tour, we'll visit Muscat, Wahiba Sands, and Nezwa. First morning in Muscat, it's all about the sightseeing. You'll take a sail across the Bay of Muscat on board a traditional dhow and stop along the coastline. And the next day is filled with touring of the city, starting with the Grand Mosque, and then experience a dolphin cruise, which we'll do in the bay. We'll also visit the museum as well as a souk to try bartering. Your journey now takes you into the desert oasis of Wadi Ban Khalid, before continuing to Wahiba Sands to visit a local Bedouin family. In the evening, you'll relax around the camp with a traditional barbecue dinner. An early start ensures that you get to Nezwa in time to experience the famous souk and the market. Afterwards, you'll visit the fort and castle before learning more about their local customs through a handcraft demonstration. Second day is all about the surrounding area, where you get to visit the oasis village of Bakla, the fort, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and then you'll continue to the breathtaking Jebel Shams, the highest mountain in Oman. Day 7 takes you driving through canyons to the mountain village of Bilat Sat, where a picnic lunch will be served after exploring the villages. You'll drive through Snake Gorge. You'll drive to Snake Gorge for a walk through the stunning mountains before returning to Muscat for your very last night. So those are the 4 tours that we have developed in the Middle East for you. And I'm happy to say, instead of it being a one-stop visit, we have incorporated them to allow you to visit more than one country at a time, extending your stay and definitely extending your experience. The way we've extended them is you can combine Egypt and Jordan into an 18-day tour, or you could combine Jordan and Israel into a 15-day tour. And we're happy to then introduce all 3 countries, being Egypt, Jordan, and Israel, into a 25-day tour. They'll all go back to back. All transport and sightseeing is pre-arranged and all included in the pricing that you've seen on the screen. And I'd like to say, I hope that you enjoyed looking at this Middle East presentation, and thank you for listening. Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Fiona, and thank you, listeners, from Fiona and myself for joining us this afternoon. It's I hope the imagery has inspired you a little bit to visit either the Middle East, any of those 4 countries, or combining them as Fiona just said, or to Central Asia, to the 5 stands of Central Asia, or to the Caucasus region with Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. All of them are inspiring locations, and all of them are, as you've seen, culturally very rich, full of highlights and an immense amount of diversity. Before we end up, can I just touch on the brochure launch offers that we have available at the moment to coincide with our brochures landing on people's doormats. First and probably foremost, in the current climate, we've introduced a £99 deposit and a very flexible booking offer, which enables you to obviously make your booking with a much lower deposit, but also make your final payment much closer to departure date, and allows you the flexibility to amend or change your booking at any point should you want to. The second offer is a very popular offer which we have done before. We've brought it back and we've applied it on almost all of our tours. It's the Partner Flies Free offer, whereby you can fly as a couple with one person flying completely for free, or if you're traveling on your own, we'll take half the price of your flight and pay for it. The third offer is the one-way business class upgrade we're currently offering with Finnair to China, Japan, India, South Korea, or Thailand. Not many people realize, but Finnair operates the fastest flying route between London and the Far East, flying what they call the Northern Route across the Northern Hemisphere. And the stopover in Helsinki is very efficient and very quick. It's an airline we can strongly recommend. And finally, we're offering a both ways World Traveller Plus upgrade with British Airways to Japan or India, which is an amazing offer for both of those destinations, to fly in both directions in the wide, comfortable reclining seats of World Traveller Plus with British Airways Direct. With that, we'll bring this afternoon to a close. As I said just now, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you feel that you're leaving feeling inspired. Obviously, if you have queries or if you'd like to make a booking, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call. Thank you.